All right, I'm going to be looking into the right versus wrong belief, the false beliefs that we all have within ourselves that is part of society. This is something that has been ingrained within our psyche from long, long ago. The right versus wrong, being wrong made since we were children. A lot of us have gone through this. This is not a fault of anyone whatsoever. It is a societal, systemic issue that we can break free from. So when we were young, we were probably most likely taught that certain things were right, certain things were wrong. This also does tie into the critic archetype video that I recorded not too long ago. When we find fault in many things that we do, that other people do, looking at what's wrong with the world. And this is connected with the critic, is connected with the shadow aspect of the critic archetype within all of us. And so when we are wrong made as children, being yelled at, being punished, being corrected constantly, being told that what we are doing, how we're looking, how we're behaving is wrong. And it doesn't necessarily have to come out in the word as you are doing something wrong. It's also in the behavior and the action and the exchange of dynamics between a parent or caregiver or even other influences in a child's environment towards the child. And so when we're children, we just naturally pick up on so many things. Now, this can come from an extreme case where a parent had been very dominating and very controlling and very perfectionistic and extremely angry and projecting a lot of this onto a child, or it could be from very subtle influences where a child would pick up these cues and clues from its environment. Therefore, building a belief system around what's right, what's wrong, being very cautious and very paranoid about how one looks, how one acts, and then that manifests into many different types of behaviors and perceptions and realities that one can create and one can live by. And so this interweb of experiences and influences become hardwired within the psyche, and then it ends up creating a false belief system or false beliefs pertaining to what's right versus what's wrong, or even having a hard decision or hard perception around what is right versus what is wrong, especially looking at what is wrong. Unfortunately, this is the byproduct of society, but by being aware and creating greater self-awareness around this aspect of our existence, we will be able to liberate ourselves from this false reality that has been created from lifetimes ago, so that we can become more free and at peace within ourselves, so that we can also learn to love ourselves wholly and fully, and that we can learn to accept ourselves wholly and fully and regain our sense of self and our sense of personal power. And so when we feel that we are doing something wrong, when we are hard on ourselves, when we are looking at our faults, then we are going to create a web of experiences based on that. For example, if I look at myself as my body type isn't right, it's not what I like, maybe I'm speaking wrong, maybe I'm holding myself wrong in certain social environments, then I would develop social anxiety, for example. I would tend to overthink and overanalyze my speaking, myself, where I wouldn't find comfort in my being. I would also tend to pick myself apart, my body apart, and compare to others because I would feel that I am wrong or I look wrong. And it doesn't have to come out in that specific word, but it is a sense and a false belief that ends up triggering and activating many other behaviors and actions and feelings and sensations and perceptions about one's life. And so it can manifest in many different forms. And the core false belief that is formed within the unconscious is I am wrong or I am not good enough. And so that core belief is dormant within the self, and this can also be connected with shame. For example, when one is ashamed of maybe themselves or not feeling confident with how they look or how they speak or how they show up in the world, or even feeling ashamed of situations from the past that have formed some kind of false belief within the unconscious that I am not good enough. And so when there is a false belief of I am not good enough, there can tend to be the perceptions of looking at life through the lens of what is wrong, right? So when we feel whole, when we have arrived in a place of alignment and wholeness within ourselves and radical self-acceptance with who we are, every aspect of our being, we will not see the flaws in life. We will have more compassion, we will have more understanding, and we will lift the shadow aspects of ourselves and the false beliefs that have been overshadowing our true beliefs and our authenticity, our true self, and of course, our personal power, our confidence. When someone is confident and they show up, they aren't necessarily looking at the wrongs of the world unless they have the belief buried deep, deep, deep within themselves. But when we are aligned, when we are full in our heart, when we are confident, when we are whole within ourselves, we feel good with who we are. Therefore, we see the good in life. We also want to empower others. We want to help others. We want to create meaningful experiences. So the actions, the perceptions towards oneself will start to shift and change when we get out of the loop of what's wrong. Of course, also the inner critic, but at the core belief, the very origin is going to be, I'm not good enough. I am not enough. And so when that hole, that void is filled with I am enough, I am good enough, then one will feel more confident in their body. One will feel safe and secure within themselves. One will also then create meaningful relationships that resemble that. They'll have life experiences that will resemble that. They will be at more peace and ease and flow within themselves and with life because they won't be looking at constantly trying to perfect or find the wrongs of their surroundings or within certain relationships. They will be at more peace, and then they will have more confidence within self. So in society, in our greater landscape, we have a lot of wrong making. So this is part of our society, punishing people. And I don't want to get into some of the extreme cases, if you know what I mean. That's not where I'm going, even though I feel that when we get out of the thought of things are wrong and looking at certain structures and ways of functioning and even humanity as a whole in many different ways, formats, and functioning ways of being, we will start to find more flow and trust with humanity rather than always hitting these walls of what is right, what is wrong, punishing others, pointing the finger at others, finding the faults of one another. And I don't want to get into the extreme dynamic of this. Yes, people are doing bad things in the world. There are people who are doing things that you can consider wrong. However, when we look at this right versus wrong aspect from even a higher vantage point, from an enlightened vantage point, perhaps, I will throw it out there, I'm not negating the negativities, the injustices, the brutalities of the world. However, what if, I'll just throw this out there, what if the wrongs of what we see in the world are actually something perfect that's unfolding, allowing us to create greater awareness and growth within humanity? What if the wrongs of what we see in the world are actually an opportunity that is allowing for us to awaken, allowing for us to enlighten, allowing for us to heal, allowing for us to better humanity as a possibility? What if the wrongs in the world when people are doing wrong was part of their soul contract? What if it was part of what they're meant to experience? I hate to say some of these situations that are awful in this world, but perhaps it is part of the natural unfolding. Perhaps it is leading to something better. Perhaps it is offering us a learning opportunity. Perhaps. So if we take the right versus wrong out of the equation and we look at life through a different lens, through a different perspective, what happens? We take the pressure off. We start seeing life a little bit differently. We start having more compassion towards others, and we also can be more aware of solutions that can be developed through difficult times, through challenges, and not being so hard on ourselves and placing pressure on ourselves when we do something wrong, right? I don't know how many times I have failed in my life. I don't know how many times I have done things where I felt I did things wrong, and I put so much pressure on myself, and it held me back from moving forward. It held me back from expressing myself. It held me back from opening my heart. It held me back from so much in life because I felt that I was doing so much wrong. I couldn't see the right in anything that I was doing, in any of my experiences. And so what does that do to someone? Well, it cases them in so tightly in a feeling, in a sensation, in a reality that they are wrong, that they are doing things wrong, that they are not enough within their deeper self. So there's a chain of events that happens from these core beliefs that we have within ourselves. And these core beliefs aren't necessarily going to be attached to a word. For instance, myself, I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm not enough. I certainly didn't feel that I was enough, but I didn't know how it was translating in my reality or in the way I felt. I just felt low. I felt depressed. I held myself back. I was hard on myself. I was correcting myself constantly. I would stutter and stammer because I was constantly trying to perfect what I was saying. There was no flow. There was no ease. There was no fluidity. And there was no trust. And there was no self-acceptance within myself. And so these are the aspects that can transpire, that can manifest based on that one core belief that we have within ourselves, or a few different core false beliefs, I should say, that we have within ourselves, right? And so coming back into the origin of self-acceptance will alleviate the harshness that we have towards the world, towards ourselves, towards our others, towards our family, our love relationships, etc. When we ease off, then we can see more within the dynamics of people, we can see more within the dynamics of life, and we can see more and appreciate more within ourselves. And then, of course, the next stage is seeing all challenges as opportunities, seeing all challenges as a gift of something that we can learn through, of something that we can grow through, and being open rather than closed to life experiences and to even challenges. Challenges then will not really be seen as challenges anymore. These moments of working through challenges and being stuck and holding oneself back and reserved and blocking life will become smaller and smaller and smaller, and there'll be more flow and more openness to life experiences when one has worked through these inner aspects, these inner hurdles and perceptions of being wrong made, the world is wrong. And then, of course, the results can be fear, can be shame, showing up in the way that one perceives and sees the world and reacts accordingly. So these moments of fear, of doubt, of worry, of self-criticism, of resistance will become smaller and smaller and smaller, and there will be more flow, there will be more ease and more experiences that will match how one feels about themselves, right? And so back to the mirroring effect video that I recorded, everything is a mirror of how we feel about ourselves. So if we have low self-worth, low self-acceptance, if we are looking at things wrong, we are going to continually find things that are wrong within people, within relationships, and there will be lessons that we will have to learn until we can switch our perception and start to look at life a little bit differently. But of course, that lens of how we see and perceive life has to come from how we feel about ourselves, regaining self-worth and self-acceptance within first. And then the lens starts to shift our reality of how we see and perceive reality and how we react. And then, of course, what we create as a result. So everything starts at the very seed, at the very origin of how we feel about ourselves. And it's important to get in touch with that feeling, that origin of how we feel about ourselves first, at the very origin of it all. And this is also, of course, where it takes us into the shadow and the unconscious self and these false programmings that have been developed. But I want to shine some light on the topic of wrong versus right. I have this debate with my family all the time. I used to live in a very black and white world, even though I still had a lot of depth and interest and openness. I still had a lot of black and white towards society. It slowly began to open. And now with this big opening and big understanding that I have within myself and self-acceptance that I have within myself, I see things so differently than before. And this will definitely allow for us to take the pressure off of ourselves, but also open up to progress in humanity, to offer more ease, and more compassion, and more care towards the evolution of society as a whole. So the harder we are on ourselves, the harder we are going to be towards others. Bottom line. The greater separation that we have within ourselves, the greater separation we are going to create with others and with humanity. Bottom line. That's how it works, right? So this is all about reflection, a little bit of maybe checking in on perception, looking at life perhaps a little bit differently on the topic of right versus wrong. Look at it a bit differently. Challenge yourself. Try to gain new perspectives. And most importantly, check in with the feeling of right versus wrong. The intensity of it. How does it play into your life? How does it show up and manifest in maybe perception, maybe reactions, maybe conversation, maybe with relationship dynamics? Check in with it a little bit, play with it a little bit, sense it within yourself, and just be aware. That's all that we need to do with this exercise of life. All right, so I hope this video found you when you needed it the most. I'm wishing you all the best on your journey and beyond. Until next time, take care.